What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video on the channel today. Back with another mock draft Monday. Now, I was reading through some of the comments of my last mock draft, kind of what your guys' input was, and I do appreciate it. So that is going to change some of the mock draft because I do think you guys make some good points. So we're going to go through the mock draft. I'm going to pick player for every team. I mean, you guys know how mock drafts work. And like I said, this is mock draft 2.0. There's going to be one every single Monday leading up to the NFL draft. If you guys have been enjoying the mock drafts or any of the other videos I've been posting, make sure to subscribe. I recently did a Bears rebuild video in Madden, so if you are interested in that, go check it out right here. But let's not waste any more of your time. Let's go ahead and start the mock draft now. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The Bears should absolutely and will absolutely be taking Caleb Williams first overall. Now, number 2 is where I have my first change, I guess, from the last mock draft. Now, when I do these mock drafts, it's important to note that this is not necessarily what I would do. It is a prediction of what I think the way the board is going to actually unfold on draft day, right? So, for the Commanders right here, I think it's evident that they're taking a quarterback. I am going to go ahead and mock them Jayden Daniels. Now, me personally, I would never do this. I think Drake May has way more upside. He's more pro-ready. He's bigger, taller. Jayden Daniels, I do worry about his frame. I do think that Drake May is a better quarterback, and because of that, I am going to mock him to the Patriots right here at 3. Now, listen, I think 1, 2, and 3 is going to be Caleb, Jayden, and Drake May. I think 2 and 3 are interchangeable. I think number 1 is pretty clearly Caleb, but I think those are the first 3 guys off the board. I think 2 and 3 you can interchange. Now, this doesn't really change anything for what I have the Arizona Cardinals doing as well. I still think this falls perfectly in their favor to take Marvin Harrison Jr. Like I said, if the first 3 picks are quarterbacks, Cardinals don't need a quarterback. They can take arguably the best player in this draft class. Okay. Now, this was the first pick where you guys had some issues with what I did in the last mock draft. In the last mock draft, I said the Chargers are going to take Joe Alt. They're going to move him to right tackle, because they have Rashawn Slater at left tackle. Now, you guys made some points that, hey, it's not as easy as you might think to just make a guy go from left tackle to right tackle. I believe somebody said it's like, throwing with your left and your right hand. I get it. And what I also failed to, I think, fully recognize at this time is that Trey Pipkins, I think, just recently signed an extension. So, obviously, Joe Alt would be a better tackle than Trey Pipkins, but it's not an immediate need. Rashawn Slater, hoping he stays healthy, is a phenomenal left tackle. At number 5 right here, I think that you're going to take arguably one of the most talented players in this draft, and arguably one of the most talented players at his position in any draft. That would be Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia. If you look at the track record of Jim Harbaugh, and now more specifically with Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, they love tight ends. If you remember Jim Harbaugh's time at San Francisco, it was Vernon Davis. Then, later on, obviously with Greg Roman, Mark Andrews in Baltimore. I mean, they've always been really, really good with tight ends. And, adding a guy like Brock Bowers to be an explosive playmaker on that Chargers offense is, I think that's something that Jim Harbaugh's going to love. And Brock Bowers is no slouch in the, run blocking department either. So I think he fits well with Jim Harbaugh's ideology. All right. Now we got the New York Giants. And I don't think they can take a quarterback here because of the whole Daniel Jones contract situation and Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito. Anyway, I'm not doing that. But at number 6, I do think that they're looking at wide receiver. And they got a guy in Malik Neighbors who I think is really good. Again, Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze are kind of right there for wide receiver 2 in this class, in my opinion. I probably lean Odunze slightly. However, I think for the Giants, Malik Neighbors might make more sense. I do think that he's someone that they might need. Again, you could put Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors at 6. I really wouldn't give you a big argument for either one. My gut tells me Malik Neighbors goes 6 to the Giants. And I just think that that's how the board's going to unfold. So pick number 7, the Tennessee Titans are on the board, and I think that they've really liked the way that this draft board has unfolded. Then they get their hands on Joe Alt. They prioritized it last year with Peter Skoronski. They want to build up the trenches. What better guy to do that than Joe Alt, who is arguably the best tackle in this class? People are saying he's a blue-chip prospect, and again, I won't necessarily disagree with them. Now we got the Atlanta Falcons. They do need corners. They do need receivers. Well, that's what PFF says. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. What I do think they need is quarterback. And I think that this is where, outside of those top 3 guys, I think this is where it starts to get kind of interesting. Now, I don't necessarily think that pick number 8 is where they're going to take a quarterback. I think that that's a little rich to take quarterback 4 in the class, which is probably how it's going to go. I could see the Falcons being a team that trades up, but assuming they stay at 8, I don't know if quarterback's the move here, right? So then you got to go, okay, well, I think their other bigger need is corner. They tried the Jeff Okuda experiment. They didn't really work out. I think they are going to try to take a corner, with new defensive coordinator Raheem Morris. I think that would be a good pairing. Who I think, it's a good little competition right now for corner 1 in this class. I would say the lead right now is in favor of Nate Wiggins. That is definitely subject to change once we get, through the combine, through the pro days, everything like that. Nate Wiggins, I think I'm going to be the pick for the Atlanta Falcons right here. For the Bears, I think they have to love, Roma Dunze kind of falling in their lap at that point. You add another receiver to pair with DJ Moore, who obviously DJ Moore's great, but as a whole of a wide receiver group, the Bears are not very good. Darnell Mooney's a free agent. They're going to surround their new quarterback, Caleb Williams, with as many good weapons as possible. Right here, if you're the New York Jets, I think they're pretty much, legally required to take an offensive tackle to hopefully keep Aaron Rodgers in one piece. Olu Fashanu is here at the board at 10. I really don't think that there would be any hesitation to take him. I think that they would grab the draft card and they'd sprint it all the way up to the podium. That just seems like a very obvious pairing, for this mock draft right here. At number 11, and this is going to be interesting because we're going to see, what happens in free agency in about a month. We're going to see if Kirk Cousins resigns, if he goes somewhere else. I'm still under the impression that I do think that they will retain Kirk Cousins. I do think that he comes back. So then, in my opinion, I do think that they still need help in the defensive back department. I think they want a guy, to pair with Brian Flores' blitz-heavy scheme, a guy that can play man coverage. I do think Cooper DeJean can do that. He is a super athlete. He's really, really good. He's the rarest breed of corner, which is white, obviously. But I think that he would be good in Brian Flores' man blitz-heavy scheme that they run. I think he'd be a good pairing. And for those of you questioning to take Cooper DeJean, is he a top 11 player? Can you take him that high? Watch some film. That's all I gotta say. I was very, very impressed when I put on the tape. For the Denver Broncos right here. Now, this has been kind of a popular pick amongst a lot of people. This again is an instance where would I do this? Fuck no. Could I see it happening? Absolutely. That to me would mean that J.J. McCarthy is a Denver Bronco in this instance. Now, if you think about it, Sean Payton likes quarterbacks with good attributes. J.J. McCarthy is a great athlete. He's a really good athlete. I would honestly say he's probably, a tick behind Jayden Daniels, but he's really damn good. He has shown flashes with the arm strength. He has, shown flashes of really good accuracy. The stats weren't there at Michigan. He threw for less than 200 yards per game at Michigan, which again, he wasn't really asked to do a whole much. He wasn't asked to go out and throw for 350 and 3 touchdowns like Michael Penix was. But again, that is a bit of a concern. I think if you're Sean Payton, he will have the mindset of I can get the most out of this guy. I can, use his ability. I can squeeze the lemon out for all of its juices, if that made sense. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I actually know J.J. McCarthy personally, so it would be pretty cool to have a guy I know, in the top 12. But I think that this is a very Sean Payton move, especially we all know Russell Wilson's the fuck out of there, so I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense for them to address their quarterback need at pick 12. All right, the Raiders. Now, I would honestly say edge rusher would make sense where the board's at, but I just can't see it for the Raiders, right? They just took Tyree Wilson. They still have Max Crosby, who's phenomenal. He's a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I just can't do it. I can't give him an edge rusher right here. I could give them an interior defensive lineman, but again, I think Byron Murphy at pick 13 is rich. I know he's ranked at 12 at PFF. I would say maybe a little bit lower than that. You know what I'm gonna do? And I just thought about this. This is a very spur of the moment thing. I'm going to go ahead and give the Raiders Jackson Powers Johnson. Get them a certifiable franchise center. Get him an anchor up the middle. We saw how important, a guy like Creed Humphrey was for the Chiefs. Obviously, I know he wasn't a first-round pick, but, we're seeing how vital he was to stabilizing that offensive line. The Raiders have had all sorts of offensive line, defensive line issues. Their trenches have been bad in the last couple of years. And I think Jackson Powers Johnson would really kind of stabilize that a little bit. All right, this is where I think we see a run on edge rushers. I'm going to go specifically edge rushers. I would think that the board's number 1 edge rusher would be Latu out of UCLA. I will give him to the Saints. The Saints, ignore their needs. They're going BPA. They're going best player available. They don't have, any kind of future. They don't have any kind of plan. They're just, continuing to kick the cap down the road. And so you can't really be picky here. You just got to get the guy who I think is highest on your draft board, whoever that is at pick 14. At pick 15 for the Indianapolis Colts, I do think it's interesting because I personally might go with offensive linemen. I've said in the past, maybe you go with receiver or you go with, maybe if Brock Bowers is still here at 15, obviously I think you go with Brock Bowers. But I'm thinking about this. I'm like, this receiver class is pretty deep. You're going to get some guys second, third, fourth, maybe even fifth round that could be really solid contributors. I mean, even last year, Josh Downs was a late second or something like that. Like, you can find quality guys later in the draft. I think you want to get some positions that really won't be there. And everybody kind of knows by, probably the middle of the second round at the latest, all the quality tackles normally are gone. So I will go ahead and take Tyrese Fuaga out of Oregon State to hopefully keep Anthony Richardson up in one piece. And, you want to keep that guy healthy. He's pretty good at football. At number 16, my Seattle Seahawks. And now I feel uniquely equipped to answer this mock draft because the Seahawks do need help in their interior offensive line and their exterior defensive line. Now, a lot of this decision is going to depend on whether or not they re-sign Leonard Williams, right? I don't think they franchise tag him because that's going to be about $36 million. I really don't think they do that. So can they come to an agreement before he's a free agent? My inclination would be yes, because I do think that they invested a second-round pick in him. They're not just going to throw that away. They're going to do whatever they can to get a deal done. So that kind of eliminates, Byron Murphy, Jerzon Newton, who honestly would probably be my pick here if Leonard Williams doesn't resign. But assuming he does, I think that this falls perfectly where you get your pick at either Dallas Turner or Jared Verse. Now, I am an Alabama fan, as you can see by my shirt. I love Alabama. I've watched every Alabama game for the past 10 years. And I truthfully think that Dallas Turner is a phenomenal athlete, and his upside is probably massive. And that is why I think that he would be such a perfect fit for Mike Macdonald. Because Mike Macdonald has shown during his time in Baltimore that he is able to, that's what I just mentioned, like with Sean Payne, things he could do with J.J. McCarthy. Get everything out of this player. Get this player to his ceiling. I think that Dallas Turner might have the highest ceiling out of any of these edge rushers. Latu probably has the highest. Dallas Turner might have the second highest ceiling. And I think that the Seahawks would not only be filling a position of need, but they would be getting a guy with a massive ceiling, and Mike Macdonald would be thrilled. So I'd be awesome to hear that. Also, the Cowboys' defensive line coach from last year is now the Seahawks' defensive coordinator, so they're putting a big emphasis on defensive linemen as well. Jacksonville Jaguars, I think that this is where we see a corner. Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, I thought had a really good week at the Senior Bowl. It's kind of hard with small school guys because they're not going against NFL players every single week. You know what I'm saying? Like Terrion Arnold, yeah, he was covering Malik Neighbors. He is covering who else, right? SEC guys. Quinion Mitchell, I mean, he's playing at Toledo. He wasn't really guarding a lot of guys. Then you saw at the Senior Bowl, you're like, holy shit, this guy is holding his ground. I mean, it's really hard for corners to look good in one-on-one reps, and he was. And I think that's a very encouraging sign. I think his draft stock went way up. Guys like him are why the Senior Bowl is a big deal for so many guys. And I think the Cardinals. I think the Jaguars do need corners. I will take Mitchell, give them to 17. I think that that's a pretty good move right there. Pick number 18 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I do think, again, offensive tackle is on the board here. I really do. The La'el Collins situation did not work out. Joe Burrow has been injury. Let's be honest, he's been injury prone so far early in his career. He's been phenomenal when he's on the field, but he's missed a lot of time with injuries. And I know they've invested a lot in the offensive line, both monetarily and draft pick wise. But honestly, I think you got to just keep throwing the dart at the dartboard until something lands. I will pick J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Was a very good pass protector. Played right tackle. So obviously, if they want to keep their guy at left tackle, he gets slided at right tackle. Pick number 19 for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, again, I really like Jared Verse. I think that he's a phenomenal edge rusher, and I would hate to have him going up against Geno Smith twice a year. But honestly, I think that's the pick. I do. They're not very talent dense on that Rams defense, and having a guy to shore up your edge rusher. I mean, if you can get a quality edge rusher, I think their defense will be worse now that Raheem Morris left. And I think that Jared Verse adds just a jolt of energy into their personnel department that they haven't had in many years because they haven't had they haven't had picks in a long time. They fucked them picks. It worked, but we've seen the last couple of years their roster be suboptimal. Jared Verse, I think, would help them get back on track. Now at pick 20 right here, something very interesting, because I could definitely see Pittsburgh trading pick 20 for Justin Fields. I can 100% see that. So if the Bears are on the board here, obviously it's a way different story. I'm operating with no draft picks for now, no draft trades for now. What do the Steelers need? They need DBs. And there's two really, really good Alabama corners on the board. Now, some people disagreed with my pick to take Terry and Arnold last time, or was it Cooley McKinstry? I don't remember which one I took. So I'm going to go in a different direction here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take Byron Murphy out of Texas. Now, I know, Casey Hayward, he's getting up there in age, right? He's still kicking it, but he's getting up there in age. And the Steelers, if you just think about the Steelers, you always just think about a tough as fuck defense. And Mike Tomlin is still a coach. He's still a defensive guy. They're going to be good on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to be tough. Byron Murphy, I think, would be a good addition. Again, they're not super deep at defensive tackle, I don't think personally. And you never want TJ Watt to be like the only guy out there that can get after the passer and stop the run. They're going to be with their D-line. I think that this is just a Mike Tomlin preference thing. And honestly, even if the Bears have this pick, I could see, Jerzon Newton or Byron Murphy going at pick 20, either way. Miami Dolphins. Now, this is a spot where I think it's kind of interesting because, I honestly think that they have a need at corner, right? Jalen Ramsey obviously is good, and Xavier Howard is good. He is injury prone though, I think, and their depth behind those guys are not very good. I forget who the guy's name is, but number 4, he's just not a very good cornerback, unfortunately. I think Terrion Arnold kind of fell into the lap right here, and I think he'd be a good addition for this Miami defense now, without Vic Fangio, obviously. So I think their scheme is going to be a little different. I'm excited to see, what their defense is able to do next year. I thought it took a step up. Maybe it takes a step back down now with Vic Fangio. And speaking of Vic Fangio, the team that he is now coaching, the Philadelphia Eagles, are on the board. They need, DBs, I think, really badly. I've talked about this with my buddy, my good buddy who's an Eagles fan. I've told him, I was like, dude, what lines up so perfectly for you guys, both in, the draft board and in position need, is Kool-Aid McKinstry, and I'm going to rock with that once again. I think that is an excellent pick for the Eagles. It fills a huge need at corner because James Bradbury sucks. Darius Slay is still a pretty good player, but he's getting much older. And I don't know how many years left you have of Darius Slay really being a good corner. We saw the drop-off of Bradbury was like that. And you can't really rely on like Keely Ringo or Josh Jobe to be, lockdown corners, especially when you're in division with like CeeDee Lamb. Like that's just not going to work, right? Houston. This is a spot where I do think we see Jerzon Newton go off the board. And let me tell you why. I think that they are going to want to continue to stack young, really good defensive line talent. D'Amico Ryan is a defensive-minded head coach. We know this. I think their need at receiver maybe a little over-exasperated. Nico Collins has proved that he's going to be really good. Tank Dell's be really good. You have two really good wide receivers. And I understand that Tank Dell is coming off an injury, a leg injury. But you have two really good wide receivers. And that is something that not a lot of teams can say. So I would maybe bypass receiver in the first round and go with more of a position of need, which I think is interior defensive line. And again, D'Amico Ryans, I think he would love that pick. At pick 24, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I can see the Cowboys going in a few different directions here. I can see them going with a defensive lineman if one of those guys was still available. I think Tyler Guyton could make sense as well because Tyron Smith is a free agent next offseason. So I think one of the tackles does make sense. And honestly, out of all the guys left, I probably prefer Tyler Guyton the most. So he's probably going to be my pick here just because I do think that they're going to want to find a Tyron Smith replacement, regardless of if he leaves in free agency or not. He's getting older, and I don't know how many elite years he has left. Let's just be honest here. Speaking of teams that need tackles, it is rumored that the Packers are going to cut David Bakhtiari. Now, I gave him a tackle last mock draft. I said, hey, he's getting older. He's very, very injury prone these days. But I think that need becomes even more exasperated now that he's going to be released outright. They are going to take a tackle, in my opinion. My next tackle on the board would be Troy Fautanu out of Washington. I think he could be really good. He can anchor that left tackle position that is now vacated by David Bakhtiari. With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've got some needs. Now they're a playoff team, but they definitely do have some needs. I think they might want to go with edge rusher, to be completely honest with you. But again, like just the way the board fell, I don't think edge rusher is probably in their wheelhouse just yet. I know Rakashaw might be a good option. You know, there's a couple different directions that they could go really here. They could go corner, but again, I don't know if there's a corner other than Rakashaw that's like really, really good. I might honestly give the Buccaneers Rakashaw Jr. Todd Bowles is a defensive coach. I believe Carlton Davis is a free agent soon, I believe, if not this offseason. Maybe I'm completely just making that shit up, but you know, you never know. Arizona, they do need wide receivers and they need offensive linemen. I'm going to give them Amaris Mims here to pair at right tackle, opposite of Paris Johnson, who they took in the first round last year. You know, you get, Marvin Harrison, your playmaker, and you get an offensive tackle in the bookend of the first round. I think that's a damn good first round for the Arizona Cardinals. For the Buffalo Bills, I am going to go with a wide receiver here. I think that they're really lacking in the receiver department. Gabe Davis is a free agent. Stephon Diggs was really not himself the second half of the year this year. And I think that receiver is a bigger need than a lot of people are admitting it is for the Buffalo Bills. Brian Thomas Jr. to me fits that bill perfectly. I've been hearing that, some interesting comparisons from Brian Thomas, and I admittedly haven't watched a lot of Brian Thomas film yet. I will as I continue to, perfect my draft process. I say I'll probably get 3 of these right. But Brian Thomas to me seems like a shoe-in for the Buffalo Bills if he's still on the board at 28. 29, the Detroit Lions. They, I think, need corners, and they need corners badly. Peyton Wilson would be a interesting pick. I think that's too early. TJ Tampa, I just don't know. I don't know if I could do it. Honestly, if you really want me to pick someone for the Lions, this is kind of not a great spot to be in, admittedly, for the Lions. This is definitely, I think, a spot where they would trade down. But I guess TJ Tampa fills their biggest need. Like, I feel like they need corners, like, badly. Like, dude, Kendall Vildor fucking sold the game against the 49ers, and it was just awful. So, that's not fun. For the Baltimore Ravens, I am going to stick with my initial prognosis of going with tackle. Graham Barton out of Duke, I think, would be the best tackle available at this point. I've talked to my boy TDB Ravens Media. He's told me, like, hey, Morgan Moses ain't it. Ronnie Stanley is, he's just not the same guy that he was a couple of years ago. Tackle would probably be a position they target. I would go Graham Barton there. For the 49ers, this is a team that they're probably the best team in the NFL on paper. They don't have a lot of holes necessarily. I think Peyton Wilson is now in the mix, with the Dre Greenlaw torn Achilles, unfortunately. I don't necessarily think they need receivers. I don't necessarily think they need a safety, like, badly, because Hufanga is going to be coming back next year. I could see them going with Zach Frazier, a center. Jake Brendel is not, I wouldn't say he's elite by any stretch of the imagination. And outside of Trent, they're probably an average offensive line. So, we'll kind of see how that goes. But I do think taking an interior offensive lineman would be beneficial for the 49ers. I hope they don't, because fuck the 49ers. But I think that would be beneficial. And then a guy that I honestly totally forgot about in my last mock draft that you guys were spamming the comments for, and I'm going to do it. I promise. Keon Coleman. He is really damn good. The Chiefs have a big need at receiver. And I think that is a match made in heaven. So, that is my mock draft. That's not my mock draft. So, this is my mock draft. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know who you would have picked for your favorite team instead of who I picked, or if I picked the right guy, let me know that as well. But anyways, guys, I will see you in tomorrow's video. Peace out.